Hello friends, a very warm welcome to Ansarkari. I am Vikas Bhardwaj. Continuing our understanding of different aspects and also different contributions of Weber, we are picking up a very important concept of values. What according to Weber and how one should see values when it comes to sociology as far as Weber is concerned. So modern sociological thinking in America on the roles of values in social sciences, it has been shaped to a large degree by an interpretation. And it may be simple also at times, and it may be earnest also at times because there is no one way to quantify it. Weber's notion of value free sociology. That is what we are going to talk about. Weber's notion of what is the role of value in sociology and why he is actually a strong proponent of value free sociology. So, a common perception of Weber's view is that social scientists should not let their personal values influence their scientific research in any way. That's what is value free. So, Weber's work on values, when we see, but is far more complicated and it cannot be reduced to the simplistic notion that values should be kept out of sociology. So, what exactly Weber wants to convey when he says that there must be value free sociology. There must be research which must not be influenced by researchers' values or perceptions. So let's see first of all why values and teaching they both are very important and they are different. Weber was very clear about the need for teachers to control their personal values in classroom. So he was of the view that academicians have a perfect right to express their personal values freely in speeches, in press, and so forth. But when it comes to academic lecture hall, it is different. And that's what is not happening even in India today. That's what we say when we want to think about a scientific, empirical, or a constructive role of a certain social researcher, certain teacher, certain scientist, even a politician is also a social scientist in some way because they have a great social role to play. But what they are doing actually in their domain, that is what Weber is trying to say. That teacher can say anything anywhere, but when it comes to academia, when it comes to academic lecture hall, then teacher cannot say everything. So Weber was opposed to those teachers who preached their evaluations on ultimate questions in the name of science, in governmentally privileged lecture halls, in which they are neither controlled, they are neither checked by discussion nor subject to contradiction. So the lecture hall should be held separate from the arena of public discussion. That is what Weber is saying. Then only true justice can be done. So the most important difference between a public speech and an academic lecture lies in the nature of audience. So a crowd is watching a public speaker who has chosen to be there, and the crowd can leave anything. You can leave a concert anytime. But students, if they want to succeed, they have a little choice but to listen attentively to their professors' value laden positions. So those value laden positions, if they are embedded with their personal ideas, then they cannot do great service to the children. That is why he is saying that there is a little ambiguity in this aspect of Weber's position on value freedom. So academicians can express facts, but they must not express their personal values in the classroom. So teachers may be tempted to insert values because by inserting values they can make things more interesting. But teachers should be they must be very careful and cautious by employing those values because such values will weaken the student's taste for sober empirical analysis. This is the key word. These are the key phrases which you must be even writing down in your notes. How you're going to do sober empirical analysis if you are not having all the facts, all the kind of contradictions and discussions are not in front of you. So the only question is whether it is realistic to think that a professor can eliminate most values from their presentations. So Weber adopted this position because he believed it is possible to separate fact and value. Fact, that is scientific; value, that is my personal value. But when we see Marx, So Karl Marx would disagree with this because in his view, fact and value were intertwined. They were so intertwined that we call it dialectically interrelated, as we have discussed in context of Marxism. So in case of Weber, it is value free. It must be value free. So value and research, when we see the values and research, the Weber's position on the place of values in social research, it is little ambiguous. Why? Because Weber believed in the ability of social sciences to separate fact from value, and this view could be extended to the research world. That's what he believed. Investigator and teacher should keep unconditionally separate the establishment of empirical facts and their own personal evaluation. So his evaluation of these facts, whether it is satisfactory or not, they must be kept aside. So he often differentiated, that was Weber often differentiated between existential knowledge of what is, what is truly there, what is you can empirically say, and normative knowledge, what ought to be, kaisa hona chahiye. So we can always quote this also. So he often differentiated, but the point is that whether he was able to do it completely. For example, on the founding of the German Sociological Society, Weber said, the association rejects in principle and definitely all propaganda for action-oriented ideas from its midst. Instead, the association was pointed in the direction of study of what is, why something is the way it is, and for what historical and social reasons. That's what Roth is writing about Weber when he's saying. You can always quote this and write this also. And then when you revise, I'm sure you will be more confident. So I'm giving an example how at even German Sociological Society he was trying to separate between value-laden ideas and value-free ideas. So several facts point in a different direction and show that despite the evidence described, Weber did not operate with the simplistic values or simplistic view that values should be totally eliminated from social research. So whether Weber was able to do it completely or not, that is the question we are looking at. So Weber perceived a role for values in a specific aspect of the research process. He thought they should be kept out of the actual collection of research data. When actually you are doing the thing, they should be kept out. There may be certain role for them. And Weber meant that we should employ the regular procedures of scientific investigation, that is accurate observation, systematic comparison also, and the values are to be restricted to the time before social research begins. So till that time, you are beginning your social research so that your research is not biased by your own values. Values may be there when you are actually about to start the social research. So they should shape the selection of what we choose to study. Weber's ideas on the role of values prior to social research are captured in his concept of value relevance. So what we have discussed till now about values and research, now we are going to see value relevance. So what is value relevance here is, so Weber's methodological concept, you can say value relevance, is derived from the work of the German historian Heinrich Rickert, from whom it involved a section of those parts, value relevance, those parts of empirical reality which for human beings embody one or several of those general cultural values. Okay, one value or maybe more than one values which are held by people in the society in which the scientific observer lives. So He's saying, Weber is saying, from the learnings of Heinrich Rickert, he's saying that agreed, I'm going to pick up those values of a certain scientist. I agree that a scientist may be using those values which he is having, and he may be using it for research even later on if those values are actually reflecting the general culture in which he is actually living. The scientific observer is living. So in historical research, this would mean that the choice of objects to study, you know, what objects you want to study, would be made on the basis of what is considered important in a particular society. So I'm going to pick up subject of study, maybe something in Varanasi, which may be important for me, but may not be important from someone from US or UK or maybe from France. So I'm a researcher living over here. For me, that becomes important. So researcher choose what to study of the past on the basis of the contemporary value system. So you pick up a magazine, you pick up a US magazine, you pick up a US newspaper, and then try to go through the newspaper, and then pick up Indian Jansatta or Dainik Jagran or even Telugu newspaper or a Tamil daily, and you will find the contemporary value systems are different. So in his specific case, Weber wrote about value relevance from the standpoint of the interest of the modern European. Because obviously he was living there, he was aware of that world. So bureaucracy was very important part of German society of Weber's time. He chose, and as a result, to study that phenomena, as we have seen in his biography also, that he was so much influenced by it. And various historical settings were also there. To Weber, value judgments are not to be withdrawn completely, as we were saying in the beginning, value free. Free doesn't mean everything has to be washed out. They are not to be withdrawn completely from the scientific discourse. Weber was opposed to confusing fact and value. He was opposed to it. We also agree with that. But he did not believe that the value should be exercised from the social sciences. He is not saying that completely, completely abolishing them. An attitude of moral indifference, if it is coming up because you are removing out all the values, it has no connection with scientific objectivity, then whole purpose is lost according to Weber. So that is why he was prepared to admit that values have a certain place. He wanted researchers to be careful about the role of values. It should be constantly made clear exactly at which point the scientific investigator becomes silent and which point he begins to speak because of evaluation and also working. So what Weber is saying, that when you are expressing value positions, sociological researchers must always keep themselves and their audiences aware of those positions. So why he is doing so? What is the reason? And it is empirically verified. There is a gap between what Weber said and what he actually did. That's what we found, because Weber was not afraid to express a value judgment even in the midst of analysis of historical data. So Weber being a human being, Weber being a rational human being, Weber being a scientific human being, Weber being a great sociologist, Weber being bringing a foundational contribution to sociological theories, still he was not able to do everything in a I would say, error-free way. He was also judgmental. So that's what we are saying. Weber was not afraid to express a value judgment even in the midst of analysis of historical data. That is other point, that that value judgment is actually completely scientific or not. For example, he said that Weber said that Roman state suffered from convulsive sickness of its social body. So it can be argued that in Weber's actual work, values not only were a basic device for selecting subjects to study, but they were also involved in the acquisition of meaningful knowledge of the social world. That we agree, and we can also quote it in the comment type questions and also in the long answers. Yes, definitely. He was picking up something which is so much valuable, so much contributing to understanding of society. Gary Abraham, in 1992, he made the point that Weber's work, especially his views on Judaism and as world religion, they were distorted by his values. How that is so? In his sociology of religion, Weber termed Jews as pariah people. Why? Because Weber is tracing this position of outsider more to the desire of Jews to segregate themselves. Jews are segregating themselves than to their exclusion by the rest of society. Rest of society is not actually seeing Jews uh, to be separate from them, but Jews are more willing, or they are behaving, or they are working, or they are living in certain way for a long time, that they have being showing themselves socially as a segregated community. So this view, when it was accepted by Weber, he argued that Jews would need to surrender Judaism in order to be assimilated into German society. Now, this is the contemporary view of that time. That's why he is saying so. And Abraham also argued that this sort of bias affected not only Weber's idea on Judaism but his work in general. So this is the critical. When we are writing critical acclaim, or when you are writing in comment type, couple of lines, you can always say what Weber was trying to say. He was actually not able to portray it and work on it completely 100% true. So this cast further doubt on Weber as a value-free sociologist, as we started thinking in the beginning, because he wants to be seen as a value-free sociologist. He wants to see research which is value-free, as well as on the conventional view of Weber as a liberal thinker. This question mark can also be there. So Abraham went on to write, we can always quote, so Weber was probably as close to tolerant liberalism. In spite of being not tolerant, he was tolerant according to the times, as majority of German could offer at the time. So Weber was more of a nationalist, supporting the assimilation of minority groups, than he was a classical liberal flavoring pluralism. He is not favoring pluralism. He is not saying that everyone must be existing separately, no worries, but he is more worried about that if you are a nation, if you are a great, if you want to become a great nation, then everybody has to be assimilated into a basic, profound, big, fundamental structure, that is the German structure. And those values had a profound effect on his work. So most American sociologists regard Weber as an exponent of value-free sociology. As far as American sociologists are concerned, they believe it and they learn from it and they follow it. But then we are trying to see it critically. So that is why the truth is that most American sociologists subscribe to the idea of value freedom. They find it useful to invoke Weber's name in the support of their position. Whenever they want to support their position, whenever they want to convey something like this, they will be invoking Weber. As we have seen, Weber's work is studied with values, as we have given two examples of Roman and also of Judaism or Jews. Another aspect of Weber's work on value worth noting is his ideas on the role of social sciences in helping people make choices among various ultimate value positions, because there may be so many positions which a person can take in social sciences. So Weber's view is that there is no way of scientifically choosing among alternative value positions. Please remember this. Weber is saying there is a no way, there is no single way, there is no single way, there is no multiple way, there is no way of scientifically choosing among alternative value positions. If you are choosing one position, you could have chosen another position also. So social scientists cannot presume to make such choices for people. They cannot presume. They cannot presume. They can't choose it for people. The social sciences, which strictly empirical sciences, are the least fitted to presume to save the individual the difficulty of making a choice, because it is the individual only who is going to make that choice. You can't make the choice. The researcher cannot make a choice on behalf of the people. Even if the researcher is picking up one position and leaving all other positions, then still also it cannot be satisfactory way, because the social scientist can derive certain factual conclusions from social research, but this research cannot tell people what they ought to do. Like the way our pedagogy, our work methodology, we are also deriving certain conclusions, we are also driving certain kind of value propositions, but I am not going to tell you exactly that this is what you're supposed to do. I am giving you certain direction, I am giving you certain pinpointed method and way, but I am not going to put in your mouth that this is what you're supposed to do. It will become unempirical, it will become unscientific. So empirical research can help people choose an adequate means to an end, but it cannot help them to choose that end as opposed to other ends. Maybe other ends also are valuable. Maybe other ends are also reflecting some other value which may be also helpful, which may be also scientific, which may be also empirical. That is what we have to choose among so many values, which one is the best constructive and also which is going to help society, if I see in social terms. So Weber wrote, it can never be the task of an empirical science to provide binding norms. Okay, binding norms and ideals from which directions for immediate practical activity can be derived. Now you can always get this as a quote in the comment type questions also. You can always get a statement. It can never be the task of an I would say empirical science to provide binding norms and ideals from which directions for immediate practical activity can be derived. So this is, you can always get it Weber comment. So this is what we have discussed. So I'm not saying that you have to keep it in a very, very strict way. When you revise this 2 or 3 times, I believe you will be able to appreciate the way Weber is thinking. And then if you can write it in your simple, a short note, then you are on track. And that is really going to help you. We're going to pick up more elements when we are further moving on, understanding what are the other contributions and aspects of Max Weber, so that we can completely understand and satisfy ourselves moving forward in keeping the idea of practicality, idea of scientific, and idea of clarity of thought while we are working on different directions. Wishing all the best for your study, enjoy it, and get success, because success will come to you. Like the way Weber is saying, there is no shortcut. Thank you very much.